Welcome to the Capital News. I'm your host, Alex Karitis. Today is Friday, March 19th, 2021. Thank you so much for joining me. Since it's Friday, we're just going to do a weekly wrap-up, talk about market performance for the day, U.S.-China relations, some economic data that came out earlier this week, just as a refresher, obviously being the weekly wrap-up, continued conversation on social unrest, inflationary, stagflationary effects that are being felt the world over, especially in those weaker economies and emerging markets, which I think will have some major spillover effects into larger, more developed economies as we progress throughout this year and into 2022. And then we have some other geopolitical risks that occurred in the energy markets here, where you have the Houthi rebels out of Yemen, which of course is one of the worst humanitarian crises on the planet, and the war that has been taking place in Yemen for the past several years. This rebel group did some damage to a Saudi Arabian oil facility, one of Aramco's oil facilities, and you got a spike in oil prices today. Nothing as severe as the drop-off that we saw yesterday, but nonetheless an increase in oil prices off of this news. And of course, this is something that we witnessed with similar relation to what we witnessed in late 2019 and early 2020, where we had Iran involved. And of course, Iran is most likely backing these rebel forces in Yemen. But we had Iranian forces seizing various types of tankers last year, other drone incidents, and obviously President Trump ordering the strike and assassination of one of their top generals in the Iranian military. So to me, this is just coming full circle again, and now we have a new administration here with the Biden-Harris administration. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out. Obviously, Israel is still going to play a big role in this, because they've been saying, as they've said for many years, that they will act unilaterally if they feel threatened. So I think everything is just really coming to a head. And it is not going to end well. I know I say that all the time because that's what I believe. I think that's what the evidence is overwhelmingly showing us. From a political perspective, an economic perspective, a social perspective, this is the interconnectedness of all of these things. And that's what this podcast is all about. Trying to educate the audience, trying to bring together these three things, because so many times one news organization or some commentator just talks about one of those things. They're a social justice warrior, where somebody just talks about the politics of the day, or somebody just talks about the economy. No. I think that's wrong. I think you have to bring them all together. Otherwise, you're doing a disservice to the audience, because you're making it believe as if those things happen in a vacuum, that they happen in a static environment. No, what's happening politically is because of what's also taking place economically and socially. And round we go. You have to understand how one thing pushes on the other. And that's why when we talk about social unrest, and we looked at the Carnegie Endowment on World Peace or something like that, remember? They cited various reasons as to why those protests or riots kicked off. And they had those buckets. But I pushed back on some of their analysis, because they contributed to just one or two of those things. That's all three. It's always all three of those things: economics, politics, and the social consequences. It's all three. Yes, one or two of them might have bigger weighting factors to what caused people to take to the streets, but it's all of them. There's always something happening just beneath the surface that is just waiting to break. People are just about to snap because they can't take it anymore. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And things have unfortunately gotten worse because of the pandemic, because of the ridiculous restrictions and lockdowns that were put into place, which are not showing much evidence at all that they were effective. What they were effective in doing was decimating the global economy. What they were effective in doing is shutting down and disrupting global supply chains. which is adding upward pressure to these prices of commodities, which is feeding into the inflationary cycle that we have been engaged in for the past 12, 13 years with quantitative easing. And now they kicked it up a notch, expanding the balance sheet here in the United States, the Federal Reserve, by a few $1 trillion and growing. As we stated yesterday, the Fed's balance sheet hitting a new all-time high at nearly $7.7 trillion. This will be about $8.5 trillion at a minimum by the end of the year, and I argue it'll probably be closer to $10 trillion. That's about 50% of GDP. 50% of GDP sitting on the Fed's balance sheet. That's ridiculous. For context, before the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, it was $800 billion. That was the size of the Fed's balance sheet. $800 billion. Now it's going to be north of $8 trillion. An increase of a tenfold increase over the course of a decade. And these are supposed to be emergency policies, quantitative easing. So evidently, because they never took the punch bowl away for the past 13 years, evidently we've been under an emergency for over a decade. And to me, that makes sense because the economy has been junk for the past decade. Obviously, it was in everybody's face during the GFC. I mean, how could you miss that one? But okay, here comes Barack Obama, young, charismatic politician. He has no experience whatsoever, doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But okay, he reads a good speech. Let's give him a chance. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. If he had done something, then Donald J. Trump would never have become president. Hillary Clinton would have been. If everything was great under the policies enacted under Barack Obama, then Hillary Clinton would have been president. Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You wouldn't have needed anybody else. So let's put Donald J. Trump in there, another person who has no experience. Whole bunch of personal problems. Not the greatest businessman, no matter what he tells you. Let's give him a chance. Nah, not good either. Again, folks, this is the red and blue paradigm. This is the right and left paradigm. That's all it is. It's divide and conquer tactics. It's the pressure valve. People get upset at the people in blue. Okay, all right, calm down. There's going to be an election. We'll release that pressure valve on the other side and let somebody on the red team win. Then they'll do it, and then the other side will get pissed off, and okay, wait, hang on. We're going to release the valve. Now your guy will come back in. That's all it is. And people keep falling for it, and it's the same jokers, and it's the same idiots that we have to deal with. In a country of 330 million Americans, in what's supposed to be the greatest country on earth, the best we could do was Donald J. Trump and Joseph R. Biden. Give me a break. That just tells you the state of our state of affairs. Right there, sums it all up. These people aren't the saviors of anything. These people are the product of a country that is and has been in decay and decline for quite a while. On the one hand, you have a narcissist, somebody who lies because that's just what he does, somebody who is very vain, all about himself. And on the other hand, you have the demented joker, the other demented joker, who is on the verge of being senile if he isn't already. And if you didn't see it today, unfortunately, Joe Biden was climbing the stairs to Air Force One and fell up the steps. Now, of course, that can happen to anybody. Better that he fell up the steps than down the steps. That could have been pretty bad. But this is just the image of the United States of America. That just sums it up. This is who we have to deal with. Get over these parties. Get out of these parties. How much more evidence do you need to see? Do you need to be going up the creek without a paddle? Is that what you need to be doing before you realize who did this to you? That this two-party system can no longer stand? That they don't care about you? How much more do you need to see? It's unbelievable. It really is. And it's my generation, the millennial generation, is going to have to pay for all this stuff. They just robbed us of another $6 trillion from the future, which would have belonged to the millennials and other younger generations, some yet to be, because that's a lot of money. But no, don't worry about it. That'll be their problem to deal with. Steal their job opportunities, their future growth and prosperity, so that we can bail out localities, cities, states, pension funds. No responsibility. Don't worry about it. The young people will pay for it. And nobody says a thing. The Republicans will pretend to say something now because they're out of power. Shove it. They didn't stop anything when they were in power. The Republican Party might be a good minority party because when they're in the minority, they'll at least say the right stuff. But as soon as they get power, they don't do the right stuff. And the Democrats are just ridiculous with what they're doing and have been doing. But at least they attempt to pay for it. Oh yeah, we'll raise everybody's taxes. At least they attempt to pay for it. So I at least give them credit there. And I'll give the Republicans credit for being a good minority party because they'll at least say the right stuff when they're in the minority. But they don't do the right stuff when they're in the majority, which has been evidenced time and time and time again. But if you need more evidence, just keep your eyes open because they're going to give it to you every single day as to why they don't deserve your respect or your vote. And then if we have time later on, I was watching another Bitcoin debate. Obviously, somebody for Bitcoin, somebody against it. I really don't know. Those who support Bitcoin, and I think I'm doing a good job at finding people who are educated on the topic, who are invested in Bitcoin. They can't make an argument. They can't refute the other side. I don't want to go down this right now, but it's just beside me when it comes to watching one debate after the next with different people, and it just doesn't make any sense. But that doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't continue to go higher, because if people want to continue to buy it, well, that's what's going to happen. And when Uncle Sam wants to keep sending checks to people, sit down and shut up money, and they think it's a lottery ticket, Bitcoin's a lottery ticket to becoming a millionaire overnight, hey, anything's possible. But we got the dollar index at 91.92 to close for the week. So some dollar strength here at the close of the week, and some broader weakness across the major currency pairs, with the euro giving back about 0.1%, the British pound weakening against the dollar almost 0.5% in the day's session, and the Australian dollar giving back about 0.2% against the US dollar, and Bitcoin is at $58,300 a coin. Dow Jones gave back 1% today, giving back 354 points. The S&P 500 was down 0.5%. The NASDAQ 100 put on a gain of about 1/3%. Japanese stocks did close in the red, down 1.4%. European stocks also all closed down in the red, anywhere from about 1 to 1.33%, depending on the index. Australian cash trade did close in the red as well, down 0.6%, and Chinese stocks also closed in the red, down 1.7%. So pretty much a pan sell-off across the global markets on Friday. Oil prices, as we stated, with the geopolitical event here, we got WTI at $61.42, a gain of 2.3%. Brent is at $64.43, up about 2 percentage points for the day. Natural gas up $2.54, up 2.5%. Gold and silver had a decent day. Gold at $1,745 an ounce, and silver at $26.19 an ounce. And Uncle Sam's 10-year junk note is yielding 1.72%, so flirting with where it was yesterday and hitting a level we haven't seen since last January. And of course, this is something that we are paying close attention to, because as this continues to climb, the narrative is the 10-year yield continues to climb, tech stocks continue to go down. However, it's not necessarily a pan sell-off across the major averages or indexes, because we have seen multiple days over the past couple of weeks where the NASDAQ tech-heavy sector had a sell-off. But you might actually see the Dow and or the S&P up in the green. And it could have been a strong rally up into the green for the S&P or the Dow, despite the fact that the tech-heavy sector, mainly comprised in the NASDAQ, was selling off. So I don't know if this is going to be the tale of two economies, two markets, how the narrative is going to end up playing out, because obviously the narrative now is yields up, NASDAQ down. But what about the other indexes? What about them? Are increasing yields, is that okay for stocks in the Dow? Now there's only 30 stocks in the Dow, but what about the S&P 500? Or what about the Russell 2000? What about the Russell 3000? Which I just saw something interesting on the Russell 3000. Somebody did the calculation for zombie corporations. 23%, nearly 24% are now classified as zombies. Remember last year when somebody did that calculation, it was closer to 20%. And I said it was only going to get worse. It has to. It can't get better. We haven't solved a damn thing. We've just thrown money into the system. You can print money. You can't print jobs. You can't print solvency. Doesn't work like that. So of course it was going to get worse, which just makes things worse. Because these zombie corporations are not innovative. They are not productive. Revenues that they are deriving all have to go to making their debt payments, which they can't cover, which is why they're called zombies. This is the economy of the living dead. But oh no, don't worry about it. We have to spend, beg, borrow, and print several $1 trillion to keep these guys alive, or to create more zombies. For what purpose? Oh, well, we can't sacrifice. There can be no sacrifice here. There can be no correction. There can be no liquidation of malinvestments. There can be none of this. There can be no market forces that would come in to cleanse the system, to rid it of these malinvestments, these poor decisions. Nope, can't do that. We can't have a free market capitalistic system. Can't do it. Not allowed. We are a centrally planned and controlled economy. What don't you get? We are going to inject the markets with trillions of dollars that we don't have to keep everything up, just to make it look good. This is the Weekend at Bernie's economy. The guy's dead, but we're going to make him look like he's alive and well. That's all we're doing, and it's all we have been doing. And we've been doing it since the great financial crisis. That's how long this has been going on, and people just don't realize this. But that's why you have to connect the dots. That's why you just have to ask yourself these basic questions. If everything was great from quantitative easing after the great financial crisis, then Donald Trump would never have become the president of the United States. As bad as Hillary Clinton is and was, she would have won if everything was great as a result of Obama, Biden, Hillary Clinton, Ben Bernanke, and Janet Yellen at the Fed. But it wasn't. It wasn't good. They said there was no inflation after quantitative easing. There's just no inflation. Hogwash. Again, people understand what they are spending their money on. They understand what's taking place at the grocery store, at the gas station, etc., etc. Which is why Donald Trump was able to tap into something. If everything was so affordable, then Donald Trump's message would have fallen on deaf ears. But it didn't. It resonated because there were economic realities that politicians didn't want to touch upon, that central bankers didn't want to admit to, because it would mean that their policies were a joke, that they did not work, that they do not work. Yet they continue to implement them and push them because it's all they got left. And it's because they can get away with it. Because the American brain is more focused on what the princess, Meghan Markle, the fact that she was suffering in her castle, being waited on hand and foot as the world turns, fighting a pandemic. Countries and people in recession or depression, depending on the country. And Oprah has to give an interview to the princess who just can't stand being in the castle anymore. And Dr. Seuss is a racist now after God knows how many years. He is now a racist. And the party of science, the Democratic Party, obviously biology is no longer science anymore. If you have two X chromosomes, you're a female. If you have an XY chromosome, you're a male. But I guess that's just thrown out the window. Little Bobby Sue, how do you feel? How do you feel, honey? You were born with two X chromosomes. You're a little girl. But if you feel like you're not, that's okay. That's okay. You can change your name. We can inject you with hormones. We can do whatever you want. You can be a little boy now if you want. Do you know that? This is what we focus on. This is what's happening in this country. The racism bull crap, the woe is me, narcissistic, unaware crap, the soap opera, focusing on a segment of the population that is what? A fraction of 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 1% of the overall population who think they are in the wrong body. When does this stop? How far do we have to take how these people think or feel? Seriously, I'm being honest. I'm not joking here. How far do we have to take this? Does it just stop with, well, I was born a female, but I think I'm a male? Does it just end there? Or what happens if they think and feel like they should also be a multi-billionaire with penthouses in all of the major cities around the planet and a couple beach houses and maybe some mountain cottages and some lake homes? When does it stop? I mean, they think that's what they have, or that's what they feel that they should have. So when does it stop? What is the constraint? And when am I supposed to know, if I hear somebody saying something like this, when am I supposed to know that this is now some sort of mental crisis and somebody might be on the verge of a breakdown? Because am I supposed to be a good human being? Am I supposed to be a good Samaritan and pick up the phone and call 911 or a doctor? Or ask for the phone number of their mother or father or their best friend to say, hey, somebody's talking and it's getting a little crazy here. Are they on medication? Do they need to be taken to a hospital? Because if something should happen and I'm involved, I'm going to be the one who's the criminal because I didn't do anything. Well, they felt that they were of the other sex. They thought they were Tinkerbell and they could fly to their penthouse in London. Where does it stop? That's what we're focused on because that's what's blasted on the media all the time. Meanwhile, they're running away with trillions of our dollars. But you got your stimulus check for $1,400. Sit down and shut up. This is absolutely crazy. This is why I cannot watch the news anymore. I can't listen to anybody on Fox anymore. I can't listen to CNN, MSNBC. I can't take it. Reading through Twitter, it's just as bad. It's just as bad. There's a comedian, Bill Burr. I like Bill Burr. I think he's hilarious. I like his comedy. I like his delivery. I like his style. I just like his stuff, okay? I like his comedy. Now, I didn't know that the Grammys were on last weekend or something like that. Because I don't pay attention to this crap anymore because it's ridiculous. Because it's all PC, it's all these people preaching this, that, and the other, and I don't want to hear it. But anyway, there was a big storm on Twitter and social media about what he had said because he was somebody who was reading off some of the awards, okay? So I was curious about this, and I happened to look at this this evening. What did he say that was so vulgar, that caused this social media outrage? And I watched it and it was, on YouTube, and it was like 6 minutes long. But by the time it was over, I'm like, what happened? He didn't say anything. He didn't do anything. He mispronounced somebody's name. They were a Hispanic singer. He mispronounced their name. He made a joke about a piano solo that took, an act that was on before him. He's a comedian. He made a joke about feminists. Why am I, a white guy, why am I here giving these rewards, reading off these awards to these people? That was the outrage. If you were to watch this, you would be dumbfounded, as I was. This is how crazy this country is. This is why every day I lose more and more hope about what's going to happen on the other side of this when the dust settles. This is who we have to deal with. People buy into this stuff. It's ridiculous. How do you repair this? How do you walk people off the edge of thinking everything is to be looked at based off the color of somebody's skin? Off of how somebody feels. Well, I think I'm a woman, or I think I'm a man, or I feel that way. Are we going to start educating our kids on this? Of course we are, and I'm sure it's happening in some school districts. So we're going to have kindergartners and elementary students being taught this garbage. They don't know what's going on, these young kids. They're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Now they're going to be taught about this stuff for a fraction of 1% of the population. It's completely ridiculous. But, God forbid, we teach these young people, we teach them about economics, financing, or investing, or basic money management skills. God forbid we teach them that, but let's teach them about all this nonsense. Let's teach them why Dr. Seuss is a racist. Let's teach them, well, if you feel like you're something else, you're something else. I mean, is that just limited to being a man or a woman? Or can you be Tinkerbell? Can you fly away with some fairy dust? Can you be Peter Pan? Can you be Captain Hook? Can you be Big Bird or Elmo? Can you be a ladybug or a firefly? When is this going to stop? Somebody help me. I'm curious. I am. It's just, you have to laugh at it, because otherwise it'll just eat away at you. I mean, I don't know where this is going to stop. You have all of these other manias in the market. You have Bitcoin. You have the geopolitical dry tinder all over the place, just waiting to erupt. U.S.-Chinese delegations meeting over the past couple of days in Alaska. Pretty heated. No surprise. You have the current Secretary of State Blinken making his way around Asia Pacific prior to these delegations. Because we're attempting this. Look, this is the geopolitical chessboard. We are always moving our pawns and rooks and knights and bishops around, always trying to jockey for position to maintain power and to grow our power. This is no surprise. But you have to look at the actions as to what our government is doing in reaching out aggressively to Japan, in Australia, in India. Well, I mean, look at a map. We're trying to surround China. Clearly, we view China as a threat, and, most likely rightly so. Especially economically speaking, probably on a cyber warfare basis. Of course, China has been increasing their military budget. Now, their military and their technologies there, I don't think would hold a flame to our military and the technologies that we have, but nonetheless, there are other ways to fighting a war. And they have a lot of influence. And and they got 1 billion plus people. It's a lot of consumers. So it's very tempting to perhaps persuade Chinese government to persuade other countries and businesses in other countries, hey, you want to continue doing business with us. Don't worry that we're communists. Don't worry if we have certain camps and re-education camps here or there. Don't worry about that stuff because there's 1 billion people here, and don't you want that money? Because if you don't come here, somebody else will. Somebody else will. Or we'll just do it all ourselves. Okay? It's always that almighty dollar. That gets people all the time. So the United States obviously wants to surround China, wants to form and strengthen the alliance that it's had with India and Australia and Japan. Because obviously it's very tempting. It could be very tempting for a country such as Australia to look at all of the growth that is taking place in Asia, in China, and say, well, you know what? We're a commodity country. We've avoided a recession up until now with COVID-19. We've avoided a recession for 20 years, basically because of the growth that has been taking place in China and Southeast Asia. We have mouths to feed here, too, in Australia. We have an economy. We have a society. We have a political construct. If we were to say we're not going to do business with China anymore, how do you think that's going to affect the economy? How do you think that's going to affect the politics? How do you think that's going to affect society? See how all these things are connected? So the United States needs to buddy up, needs to basically start making the argument, which we did under the Trump administration too. Secretary of State Pompeo then was making the statement that there needs to be a coalition of Western ideology, of democracy, to combat China. This is simply a continuation of that. Because other countries, not just Australia, but even a lot of countries in Europe, are going to be tempted to work closely, and they already are, with China. The question is, how closely? Will it put the relationship with the United States and other Western countries, will it put those at odds? What type of conflicts might occur because of that? You have the South China Sea issues. You have Hong Kong. You have Taiwan. Something is going to give way. I imagine this decade is going to be filled with a lot of volatility. Some of these things take time. Some of them are going to come out of left field, right field. We're going to wake up one day and something's going to happen. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But so many things are coming to a head. Geopolitically, economically, and all of this is going to lead to more social unrest. It will lead to inflation. It's already here. It will lead to stagflation. Some countries, it will lead to hyperinflation. The follow-up we did yesterday with Lebanon, where you have grocery stores and pharmacies starting to close down. We're in the midst of a crisis. We're in the midst of a pandemic. People are sick all the time to begin with, but these pharmacy owners can't afford to import pharmaceuticals. It's too expensive. And so they'd either have to eat all of it, all of that price increase, because they're probably not able to pass it on. They can't even afford to bring it in. So they're shutting down. There is going to be one humanitarian crisis after the next. And most of the media here in the United States is not going to pay any attention to it whatsoever, because it's more important to focus on comedians not even bashing anybody during the Grammys, to call Dr. Seuss a racist, to let little boys and little girls determine what sex they are, what they want to be today, and that a poor princess doesn't like being in the castle. So long as that's what makes the front news in this country, we will continue to get what we deserve. On that happy note, enjoy your weekend. Stay diversified, stay vigilant, and stay with the Capital News. I am Alex Karitis. Godspeed.